You're listening to Reflections. This is Nuri Siddiqui with my guest John Homewood. We're discussing the power of now, and this is part 1 of a 10-part series. And before the break, we were looking at the essence of what it is to live in the now and the freedom of choice that we find within that, and the letting go of the past and the future to just be truly present. Now, when we start using the word being, then this is the concept behind that is perhaps to be eternal, ever present, and to go actually beyond the myriad forms of life that are subject to birth and death. However, being is not only beyond, but also deep within every form, as it's right. So, but ultimately, we're only one step away from the word being, because all we need to do is allow ourselves to experience it.
Yes. Now, the ego will say, yeah, that's all right for other people. You know, when I've sit and I've been in prayer for 40, 50 years, and I've fasted and I've done all these things, and maybe one day I will be able to get this, and one day I'll be enlightened or at one with my Maker. And that is thoughts of the mind because of the time-based me. But as Eckhart Tolle says, we're only ever one step away from it, and that one step is to bring your mind or to bring your awareness into presence. It's just your awareness that you have to move back into presence. And as you do that, all that isn't, and when I say all that isn't eternal. All that is part of the matrix of the mind. For those of you who saw the Matrix movie a few years ago, that said it so well, this matrix that's made up to believe the real world, but it's just a matrix. As you step into presence, so the matrix ceases to have its hold on you, and you can see through the world of form. I would like to just use an analogy here, if I may, to shift your perception. If you are standing on the beach at sunrise, and you witness the sun rising. It's a beautiful event. Now, I live down near Muizenberg, and most mornings I walk along the beach, and in winter I'm there early enough to see the sunrise. And so beautiful as it rises above the Hottentot Mountains and reflects on the water. And it's a very real event, and I can take a photograph of it. I can call my partner, my friends, to come and witness this event. It's very, very real, and no one can deny its reality. It's concrete. It's real. And 12 hours later, the sun sets, and maybe we go over to Camps Bay and we go and watch the sun set. It's a very real event. We can take a photograph of it. However, if we shift and we get into a rocket and we zoot up above the Earth quite high, and from that higher perspective, we can see the Earth turning beneath us, and we can see the sun shining. And the Earth is turning, and the sun is shining. And from that higher perspective, there is no sunrise and there is no sunset. Now, it doesn't deny that from a lower perspective, that is real. From a lower perspective, there is a sunrise and there is a sunset. It's very real. But as you raise your perspective, your whole view changes, and that is the fundamental worldview that is being put forward here. As you raise your perspective, you cease to be caught up in the world going around and around and around in your life and your story and your history and your future. You step out of that and you see the world very, very differently.
So the greatest obstacles that we give ourselves is really that we just get stuck with all our stuff. So it's that letting go and peeling off the onion layers. It's where we really need to begin. Is it not, John?
That's right. And that comes from the movie Shrek, if those of you who saw the movie Shrek. And he talks about it being like onions and layers and layers and layers. It's layers of mind. It's layers of misperception. It's layers of our story. And for most of us, we think our story is real. We think our story is our life. The story isn't who you are. It isn't your life. Your life is something that's eternal. Your life just is. It doesn't have a story attached to it. It's that which animates your body. That's real life. And most of us get so caught up in our story that we forget to live our life, because you can only live your life in the presence, in the absolute awareness of what is now.
So the compulsive thinker, which means almost all of us, we live in a state of apparent separateness, which is an insanely complex world of continuous problems and conflicts, because it's a world that is reflecting the ever-increasing fragmentation of our mind. So when we choose to step into enlightenment, we can be in a state of wholeness, of being at one, and therefore at peace. Now, this concept of oneness, a lot of people might grapple with that. How would you like to expand on the oneness, John?
Yes, well, first of all, I just want to go back to a saying that comes to mind here, and that comes from another teacher, and the saying is, you don't have problems, you only think you do. And if you really understand that, it's your thinking that creates the problems. It's not the actual event itself. It's what you think about the event. You think the event should be different to what it is. So we create concepts and expectations about a situation. And it's those thoughts that separate us from this beingness that we're speaking about, from this presence that we're speaking about. And as I said earlier, there is only one life manifesting itself through different forms. So another teacher said, love thy neighbor as thyself. And if you really understand the depth of what that is about, it's to see yourself in everyone around you. There's no one else. It is you having a different experience at a deeper level. And when you start to really understand this concept of what oneness is all about, you know, the Beatles some years ago sang a song, Love Is All There Is. And if you really start to understand that love is all there is, and it's only my misperception that blocks me from that awareness, and that misperception is that I am separate to you at a fundamental level, that I and you are separate beings, and in fact we are struggling for the same resources. We're struggling for a limited, finite commodity called love or self-worth, or that we're struggling for recognition in the world out there. And when you start to let go of those concepts, those limited beliefs, and step into the true awareness of who you are in your core, at your nature, then you start to let go of fear and anxiety. And really, letting go of fear is just stepping into a realization of your true nature, and your true nature is oneness. You are that beggar on the street corner at a deep, deep, deep level, at the level of life. You are. At the external form level, no, you're not. But at the deep level, at your essence, that which animates your body, animates his body or her body as well. And that is indivisible. And as I said, this is not a belief we're talking about. This is a fundamental worldview shift. The way you view the world changes. And a saying I quite often quote is, seek not to change the world, rather seek to change your mind about the world.
Yes.
And if you understand the depth of that, is as you change your mind, what you look at changes. As you change your mind about what you're looking at and the way you're perceiving it and the way you're judging it, what you're looking at changes. And the world of quantum physics, in fact, from a physical point of view, backs this up. Because what they discovered in quantum physics is there's no independent observer and observed. As you observe something,
yes,
you physically change that. Now, that's not New Age mumbo-jumbo nonsense. That is quantum science. And that really shocked the scientists at the time to understand that just by doing an experiment, they interact and change what they're experimenting with.
Can you give an example of that, John?
Well, there's a scientist in America that's been researching and using random number generating machines. Now these might sound a bit peculiar, but they're like a digital clock that just produces random numbers. It's programmed just to produce numbers that have no sequence whatsoever. So the little clocks that tick away, and they just produce these random, meaningless numbers. And he has about 68 of them set up around the world in different places. And what his 26-year research has been is how the mind influences these random numbers that are generated, because these machines are connected back into America, into a central computer. And what it does, the computer measures the randomness of these numbers. And what it measures is when they start going out of randomness. In other words, when they start producing some sort of sequence. And so his computers are able to monitor when they are running their most random and when they start running in a sort of pattern.
Right.
And what they find is that as we focus as a human species on one particular direction, So our mind is able to alter those. And one example which he gives in the study is, for example, the stroke of midnight every year on December the 31st. With that, everyone seems to focus on an event, on a singular event,
yes.
and that is the birth of the new year. And what he finds around the world, as the timeline shifts around the world, so the random number generators that are set up around the world go out of sync. They start producing non-random numbers. They start being predictable. Another example he gave was the death of Princess Diana.
Right.
When she died at her funeral, because the world was focused on a singular event, these random number generators went out. There is a correlation between what we